What's up, guys? Dawson Weidrich, nerdy in many ways, and I tell you what, Thursday night I went and saw Avengers Endgame, and I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not really going to talk about it all. I just got to say, it was probably one of the most cool movie viewing experiences I've ever had. It was fantastic. The movie was great. The theater was packed, and a bunch of people were just commenting and cheering on different awesome parts of the film because it was well deserved. Very well put together. You know, the Russo brothers did a fantastic job. Really couldn't have done the movie any better than they did. And as I was thinking about how fantastic of a movie going experience was, or how good that was, I thought, what was the worst movie viewing experience I've ever had? And so I decided that's what I was going to do my video on today. I'm going to do my video on my worst ever movie viewing experience at a movie theater or anywhere else.
My gosh, does that suck?
And so the movie I decided to focus on was Where the Wild Things Are. Now, a lot of people know Where the Wild Things Are as a children's book that was released in 1963 by Maurice Sendak. And this book was well loved by many people for a good reason. It was a fantastic story. I mean, it's children's books. I mean, it's not like it's incredibly deep or anything. But it's a good story about a kid named Max who basically is very bratty and talks back to his mom and gets sent to bed without supper. And so he has this dream where he goes off to where the wild things are on a boat, and he becomes their king, parties it up for a little bit, and decides to try to rule them and tell them what to do, and realizes that it's hard. And so he starts to feel sorry for how he treated his mother, and he starts to respect her quite a bit, and so he ends up going back. And at the end of the story, you see him having his dinner that his mom gave to him. And so it's a story about change and improvement of behavior. And so that's why it's so well liked, is because, well, it makes you feel good at the end. It makes you feel like, oh, you can change, you can become a better person, and you can better appreciate the loved ones around you. Now, skip forward to 2009, when director Spike Jonze, or Jonesy? Jones? Anyway, one of those pronunciations, directed the film based on the same book, Where the Wild Things Are, which follows a very similar story, but to me, it was the worst movie viewing experience I have ever had because, first off, it was a major letdown because when you portray a children's book into a movie, you expect to see good things. You expect to have fun at the movie theater. You expect it to be colorful. I mean, you don't expect it to be fantastic or very moving. You just expect it to be fun. You expect it to be light. You expect it to be something that sends you back to your childhood. This, on the other hand, was not that. This movie, honestly, was the most pitiful excuse of a remake of a children's book ever. I mean,
This is just hot garbage.
no disrespect to Spike Jonze, but in this case, this was horrible. This was terrible. And I'm going to tell you why. So I told you in the story of the book, the child Max is a brat to his mom. Well, that's the case in the beginning of this movie as well. The same child, Max, is just a terrible child. Totally disrespectful, totally bratty, talks back to his mom, and of course gets sent to bed without dinner. Both in the book and the movie, they both end up in a place called Where the Wild Things Are, where a bunch of these big, massive creatures are seen there, just very wild, very ferocious, but at the same time very tame. And so they're civil monsters, I guess you can say. But when Max gets there in the movie, all these monsters, they're angry, they're depressed, they are just moody, and basically just like Max is, very bratty and just not wanting to listen to anybody. And so as Max gets there, they quickly realize, hey, this kid's pretty wild too. He needs to become our leader, so they make him a king. And what made this movie such a miss for me was it was incredibly dark. It felt incredibly low, blue, and depressing the entire time. And there's just incredibly weird parts. Like, there was a part where Max teaches the wild things how to have dirt clod fights. And so they start throwing these dirt clods at each other, and then at the end, one of them gets hit in the face, and he starts crying, he starts getting all sad and angry and that he got hit in the face. And so, of course, that doesn't make you feel good. And then, along the way, one of these creatures, gets his arm torn off in one of these battles. And so, still, incredibly depressing, and it's like, what the heck? This is a children's book that they're adapting here. Why are things' arms getting taken off? And then Max decides to tell him to create these like circular structure things, and so they do that, and you expect during this time for them to all kind of get a little more happy, but the mood really doesn't change, like at all. They still all seem really bitter and angry and depressed, and it just doesn't get any better. And then at the end, when Max leaves Where the Wild Things Are, he's really still a brat, and the monsters are still depressed and angry. Nothing has changed.
Not a damn thing!
Sit there for about 2 hours watching this story, hoping for some kind of change to happen to either the monsters or the boy Max, but nothing happens. Absolutely nothing changes. And it's incredibly frustrating. And then there's the part where Max is supposed to hide in the mouth of one of the wild things, and that's just really weird and disgusting. And then again at the end, like in the book, Max gets home, and his mom had made him supper anyway. But in the movie, it's not nearly... It doesn't satisfy you nearly as much to see him eating with his mom. You know he's still a brat. He doesn't really feel bad for what he did. He's just still a brat. And his mom's just looking at him like, oh, it's okay, I forgive you. It's like, well, no, he's got to change. He's got to get better. It's not just a simple thing where he's going to be a brat every time and you're just going to forgive him every time. I mean, you're still going to love him as a mother. But again, this movie was just such a miss for me. I remember sitting in the theater the entire time just thinking, this has got to get better, right? Like, at some point, please? But it didn't. It did not get any better, and honestly, I have not seen the movie since, nor do I have any intention to. In fact, every time we bring up our worst movies on our lists whenever I'm around friends that talk about the worst movies they've ever seen, I always bring up Where the Wild Things Are. It's always the first one that pops into my head, and for good reason. I mean, it just didn't go anywhere. It was incredibly depressing, and again, it was just one of the worst movie-going experiences of my life.
It smells like the devil tooted, lit it on fire, whispered a curse into it, and then sent it up here over the plate.
And so that's the worst movie viewing experience I've ever had. If you have an experience similar to that or something that you feel like even tops that, which I'm sure there's some out there, definitely leave some comments down in the comment section down below. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you didn't remember, be sure to go through this video and see if you can find the Lego Batman minifigure. First person to comment on where it is and at what point in the video they found it gets a shout out in my next video. And so with that, I'll see you guys next time.